Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Take Back My Brain. I am your host, Laurie Hammer, and today I have a very special guest with me. This is Nicole Laurent, and she is a licensed mental health counselor, and we are going to talk about all things with the brain and diet and ketosis and how that will help people recover from a lot of different mental health issues today. So get your notebook out if you are able to, or make sure that you flag this to replay it, because there's going to be a lot of great information today that we're going to cover for the brain and just for overall body health. So Nicole, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I love it. I love it. So I was just telling you a few minutes ago, I was looking at your website and everything that you discuss, and that's why we're on today, because I resonate with your message so much. Like, what you teach is what I believe and what I teach my clients as well. So this is going to be a great conversation.
Yes, it absolutely is.
Yeah. So as a licensed mental health counselor, your training didn't really start out in the nutritional arena, I would suspect.
No, absolutely not. So we had basic, anatomy and physiology, and we had a psychopharmacology class, so we could kind of understand what the proposed mechanisms of that was. And, we had a neurophysiology class, I think it was. That was a long time ago. I think that's what it was named. And so it was attempted for sure to kind of talk about that piece. But when it comes to actual biopsychosocial practice, I feel like that particular pillar, the bio pillar, is a little bit weak in clinical psychology practice. So absolutely not. No real discussion about nutrition. Maybe a mention that if you're super deficient, you get these diseases, and these are the mood and cognitive symptoms around those very stark disease processes.
Sure. So how did you end up discovering ketosis and diet to help change mental health issues?
Yeah. So it by accident, from a personal health experience. So
How that goes, isn't it?
Yeah. So I was basically treating cognitive impairment that came from a long history of medication use and from a neurological disorder. I've been doing that on a million podcasts. I mean, I'll talk about it. I had a pain syndrome, got put on pain medications. I was one of those people that couldn't get off of the pain medications, not because of psychological issues, but true physiological. They could not seem to detox me safely.
Yeah. Okay.
Ended up having many failed attempts, ended up having an experimental protocol. After that experimental protocol, I was off the medications, but I had cognitive impairment.
Okay.
And my impairment was such that if I had had Alzheimer's dementia, I would have met criteria for stage 1. So
wow. Okay.
It was
fairly
really
significant. Yes.
Very significant and very, very different. So that was like over like a 14-year period.
Wow.
Maybe 15-year period. So I had some serious brain problems. It was very scary. And then I heard a podcast with Dom D'Agostino on STEM Talk.
Yes.
And after some failed attempts, got the macros right, and I felt my brain turn on.
That's amazing.
And I noticed the effects on mood. I wouldn't have identified myself as anxious before, because when you're a therapist, you have all these tools and you just use them naturally.
Right.
And you really don't realize how much effort you are putting in coping and using those tools to regulate your emotion, until you get that brain shift that a lot of people get, and that I got with a ketogenic diet. And I was like, oh my goodness, my patients absolutely need to know about this.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's how I got there.
So how long, when you started the ketogenic diet, how long before you started noticing changes?
Once I got the macros right, I was one of those very quick responders where 4 days in, I felt the lights kind of come on. And that doesn't mean I suddenly didn't have any cognitive impairment, but I certainly felt a big difference in my brain energy and my mood, and my changes in my function just kept getting better and better and better.
I love it. That's so encouraging, hopefully, to all the listeners out there. Like, it doesn't always happen that way, within a 4-day period that you're like, oh my goodness, my brain turned on, but it certainly can with the ketogenic diet. So let's talk about the why. Why does that diet? Because there's been I think the ketogenic diet has gotten such a bad rap, So maybe we should talk about that first, the fears around a ketogenic diet. What would you say those are? What are they, and kind of where do they stem from?
Yeah. So there's all kinds of myths about ketogenic diets.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big fear around cholesterol and saturated fat that has been disproven, quite frankly, in the
Right.
peer-reviewed literature. I think it's the American Academy of Cardiologists
Yes.
basically said this is not a thing anymore. Please move on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's a big one. I think the other one is this idea that it's unsustainable when in fact that's not what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think for people who have neurological issues or mental illness, who are using it for symptom control or recovery, I think that's a highly motivating factor.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's all kinds. I'm sure you've heard them all, right? So I can't do a ketogenic diet because I'll never be able to order out. I won't
Right.
be able to, socialize
Right.
with people, or I won't be able to go on vacation, or there's just a lot, or the rest of my family doesn't eat this way. So it's just kind of I think because there's been such a lack of information among healthcare professionals and they don't
Mm-hmm.
know about this intervention as but they should, that
Yes.
people just kind of make up their own narratives and stories around it.
Right.
And
And it
there's
used to be just used for, like people with severe seizure disorders or something of that nature,
yeah,
back in the day. And I know I have people who are diabetic, they're like, oh, I can't be on a ketogenic diet because that'll put me in ketoacidosis. And I'm like, those are totally different,
yeah,
completely different things. And a ketogenic
yeah,
diet does not lead you into ketoacidosis. If anything, it's going to help you get out of it for sure.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely.
So let's talk about the why behind it. Why does a ketogenic diet help the brain? Because
Yeah.
there's
So
great science. So I'd love for you to dive into the science piece of this.
there are so, when I started my blog, mentalhealthketo.com, and I started looking into the research literature, there are so many positive synergistic effects on brain function that ketogenic diets have that in order to be able to write about it, I had to kind of go with these four categories. I'm going to have my articles revolve around these four categories.
Hmm.
So I'll start there. But there's more. Don't think that what I'm
Yeah,
saying
it's
is the
not
only
limited.
thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's not limited. So the first one I want to say is probably neuroinflammation. So
Okay.
ketogenic diets create ketone bodies, and those ketone bodies, both BHB and acetoacetate, there's another one, but which we think has seizure control properties like the acetate. But the thing is that it really reduces neuroinflammation. So these ketone bodies do a lot of different things. They actually act as antioxidants all by themselves. They are molecular signaling bodies that turn anti-inflammatory pathways on.
Okay.
So we just do not have a medication or a supplement that has the same effects in terms of reducing neuroinflammation as a
Right.
ketogenic diet does.
Hmm.
And when you reduce neuroinflammation, you improve the immune system in the brain. So everyone's heard of inflammatory cytokines.
Hmm.
And so ketogenic diets have effects on the immune system in such a way that they reduce a chronic production of those inflammatory cytokines, which you can imagine is very, very helpful for
Very.
neuroinflammation. It's a
Yes.
big deal. Now, when you have unchecked neuroinflammation, you also have increased levels of oxidative stress.
Hmm.
So, oxidative stress is kind of what we say when we're trying to articulate the balance that's supposed to occur between the production of reactive oxygen species and um, the body's ability to handle those and to clean up the mess from those. And so ketogenic diets are well documented to help a great deal with oxidative stress, not just because they reduce neuroinflammation and all the damage that happens as a result of that, but they also gosh, whenever I talk about this, my brain starts to go off in all the different areas that
Right.
I could go into because they're all interconnected.
Yes.
But I think kind of one of the most powerful ways that ketogenic diets help with oxidative stress is they upregulate your body's ability to make an endogenous antioxidant known as glutathione.
Yes.
And glutathione is this master antioxidant in the body, and it is very, very powerful. And let's just say there is no amount of vitamin C that's going to do what an upregulated glutathione system is going to do.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you can't give a supplement, right? You can't give a supplement to get the amount of glutathione production that you can with a ketogenic diet. I mean,
I don't think that
you can
has been,
support it, but you
yeah.
really can't.
So the way I think about it is we don't have a study on that, but well, actually we might, because so yes, people can take supplements that increase glutathione production.
Yes.
Glycine and acetylcysteine, giving and hopefully lots of micronutrients for that cycle.
Yes.
And they can increase that. But I say, what is the point of that if you aren't actually dealing with the level of neuroinflammation that's going on?
Exactly.
I was at the 8th Global Symposium for Ketogenic Metabolic Therapies in San Diego this year. And there was this fantastic poster. I wish I took a better, clear picture about it and who the author on it was. But it was amazing because there was 2 posters. One was on animal models and one was on human models. And this researcher had put people on a ketogenic diet and literally measured with MRI the increased levels of glutathione in their brain. And there was a 7 to 10-fold increase.
Wow.
And you go, 3 posters down, and the animal study and the human study are matching.
Mm.
So that is huge. That is huge.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big deal. So that oxidative stress piece. And I think that in our modern environment, with all the different exposures that we get, where we are exposed to things that tax our system's ability to deal with those kinds of assaults, I think it's really important to have a very comprehensive intervention for the brain, like a ketogenic diet. So it also increases brain energy, which helps fight areas of what's called glucose hypometabolism. And this is huge. This is crucial. So when brains are starved for energy, or parts of brains are starved for energy, there is a cycle of hypometabolism. They can't make energy. And then this is what people say to me, but Nicole, I get it if someone's depressed that they would, that their brain doesn't have energy. It's a little bit more complicated than that.
Mm-hmm.
When you starve a brain of energy because it can't use glucose efficiently anymore in those areas, it can cause cycles of reduced energy, reduced what it needs to just function, and also hyperexcitability.
Okay.
So the way I think of it, I don't know if this is correct or not, but I'm going to go with it because I think it illustrates it really well. If someone came behind me and they put a plastic bag over my head and I was starved for air, would I just sit there quietly and take it?
No.
I would be quite hyperexcitable, right?
Right.
And so that's what I think happens in the brain when it is starved of energy. So you get anxiety. You don't just get depression.
Because you get in that little fight or flight, right? Our
we're in distress.
Yes.
Yeah, we're in distress. So so fixing that is huge. Without proper brain energy, without the BHB going in and diffusing in as an energy source, your brain can't clean up its mess. Its membrane action potential is low. Those neurons look sick. Your neuroinflamed microglial cells are going to come by and chomp those perfectly good neuronal connections, thinking it's a sick neuron, when really we could have saved that sucker with a ketogenic diet.
Right.
And it could have signaled to the microglia that it is savable and healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So all these pieces, and then of course the neurotransmitter imbalances that happen when you have a brain that is in distress. Your brain needs a particular environment to work, just like I need a particular environment to write or do something. Your
Right.
brain needs a healthy environment to make its neurotransmitters in. And when that brain health isn't there, you don't make your neurotransmitters right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you've covered neuroinflammation, brain energy, and you said you had three other
Oh, so neuroinflammation, oxidative stress,
oxidative stress. Okay.
glucose hypometabolism, which talks about kind of the brain energy, and then the neurotransmitter imbalances,
Got it.
in particular GABA. So
Right.
yeah, so ketogenic diets are very well documented as helping the brain convert glutamate into GABA in the right ratios. So when your brain is not working well and you have a lot of neuroinflammation, or again, it doesn't have that environment that it needs, you end up getting neurotoxic levels of glutamate, which can actually cause more oxidative stress. And
Right.
ketogenic diets have there's a lot of different mechanisms by which we think this happens. One of them is the profound changes in the gut microbiome that happen. We think that is part of why it helps increase GABA. But GABA is that kind of chill, feel good, I
Yeah.
got
You
this,
take
my
a deep
life.
breath.
Yeah, it's all
Mm-hmm.
good. It's
Yeah.
kind of this all good energy. And there's a lot of people with mood issues that have just run-of-the-mill anxiety, may or may not be seeing a therapist, where they're just vibrating up here. Everything is just a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. And this just takes it down quite
Right.
a few notches to where you're like, I totally got this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is really, really helpful for people. And I think it helps their resiliency and their ability to regulate their mood.
Oh, I completely agree with you. When I'm working with clients, we're always changing the diet, moving towards that ketogenic state. And then, we support their neurotransmitters, and you can just see in them just this like, this just
Deep breath.
vibration that you're talking about just comes down, and they just feel so much better. That
Mhm.
grounded feeling, the like, stress just kind of, I always say, like, kind of just washes off you like water on a duck's back, right?
Mhm.
You just learn to just kind of walk through the stress, and the stress doesn't irritate your whole neurological system anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
resiliency goes up. And that's
for
what I
sure.
see too with my patients.
So what do you say to people who's like, oh, I tried a ketogenic diet and it didn't help me?
I say I say 90% of the people that I see in my consultation practice are on a ketogenic diet when they come to see me.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who actually attempted it and couldn't quite get it right by myself, I mean, I did eventually get it right by myself. I didn't have any help, but it's really difficult. And a ketogenic diet for as a treatment for mental illness or neurological disorders is completely different than the ketogenic diet that the average person is using for weight loss. Uh,
Absolutely.
there's a lot more nuances involved, and the focus can be very different. So I would say if you have attempted a ketogenic diet yourself and you feel like it didn't help you, please work with someone who's actually trained in its use in mental
Mm-hmm.
illness and neurological. There's really a lot of fine tuning that can happen, and it's well worth, I think, the cost of some consultations to
Right.
get the hang of that. Don't decide that it hasn't worked unless you've worked with a professional. That's what I would say.
What would you say some of those nuances are versus, the general population on keto and somebody with a pretty significant mental health issue?
So I I have found that some people need to do total carbs
Mm-hmm.
and get their carbohydrates very, very low. I think
Mm-hmm.
people come in with different levels of insulin resistance.
Oh,
I
yes.
said, please do not avoid a ketogenic diet because you got your fasting insulin and your fasting glucose and they're normal, and tell yourself that that means you won't benefit from a ketogenic diet for your brain, because some of my most powerful responders came in with great fasting insulin and
Mm-hmm.
great fasting glucose, but I believe there was probably still some insulin resistance in the brain because they really
Absolutely.
just lit
Mm-hmm.
up in a good way. So yeah, and then there's different ratios. So um, just going low carb and not learning to track. I know people have a real aversion to tracking, but I get people tracking all the time, people who didn't think they would or could. And
Mm-hmm.
it can actually be quite easy. And that really helps me fine tune their macros and use slightly different ratios. So you can, you don't necessarily have to go to a 4-to-1 classic epilepsy, childhood epilepsy ketogenic diet to get great benefit. There's different ones. Some people can do a modified Atkins and still get great results. Other people, no, we have to move them up in ratios a little bit. And
Sure.
there's really fine tuning ratios that someone trained can do, that can really help. And so, yeah, it's just got a lot of different nuances. Whereas someone on the internet just trying to use it for fat loss, they're going to do things like restrict fat because they're thinking about their weight and they want to
Right.
unlock their body fat. You can't necessarily do that immediately with someone that's using it for mental illness, because what we're finding, there was just a study that came out on bipolar disorder, by Needham and Campbell, that was saying that higher ketone levels are correlating to mood improvements.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody can just unlock their fat easy, right? In the
Yep.
first few weeks. And so what are we going to do? Starve their brain in the meantime? No, absolutely. So there's just different focuses when we do it for mental illness.
Yeah. Do you see a difference between men and women and their ability to get into that deeper high level ketosis in your practice?
I'm trying to think if I've paid attention to that particular aspect. I don't think so. What have you seen? Have
I
you seen
have,
that?
just depending
Yeah.
on the age of the woman, if they're, perimenopausal, menopausal, it seems a little more difficult to be in a deeper ketogenic state, is what I've
Yeah.
seen. But everybody can still get into a ketogenic state. And I think that's
Yeah.
another myth too, like, oh, I can't get into ketosis. Well, then you probably need to work with somebody who can help you get there, because sometimes it's a little bit of, flexing in and out of that state before your
Mhm.
body goes, oh, I really like this state and I can thrive in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an activity piece too.
Yeah.
So you can add walks in, you can
Mhm.
add just a little bit of, you'd be surprised how a little bit of activity can really help that get
Yes.
going. And again, everybody is coming in with different metabolic profiles and different levels of issues with that. So it can be, if it's hard, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. There's also psychiatric medications, and there's lots of medications that
Mm.
mess with blood glucose,
Yes.
that make it harder to get your ketones up. And
Mhm.
it's doable. I've never had someone on a medication where I was like, oh, sorry, we just can't get you in ketosis. But it is a factor, and it can take longer, and it can be a little bit harder for people to get into ketosis, but it's well worth the effort
Yeah.
to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, if you are thinking about doing this and you are on a psychotropic medication of any kind, that you want to make sure that you're, contacting your doctor about that and letting them know that, hey, this is what I'm doing, because your medication will most likely,
Mm-hmm.
need to be adjusted, because your brain will, come down in inflammation and you will need a different,
Yeah.
level of medication for sure. So
Yeah.
always being
Yeah.
aware of that.
Nobody should be doing a ketogenic diet for mental illness without a prescriber on board to help with medications.
Yeah.
And I will say, though it might not be popular for me to say, if they have a prescriber who is not trained in ketogenic diets, it is okay for them to find a prescriber who is and do consultation as needed,
Right.
because there really is a lot of nuances around that. And if your medications are not titrated down or reduced appropriately at the right time, it can really cause problems for you
Mhm.
as a patient.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we want this to be a successful process for people.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes, with a minimal amount of anything that would be negative. So,
Hmm.
how do you
Yeah.
feel about exogenous ketones? People just taking a ketone drink, or those kind of things.
When I was transitioning or trying to figure out if a ketogenic diet would work for my brain, I tried exogenous ketones. And I did not feel an effect or get an effect. And I think that you need the synergistic components that come with lowering insulin to get
Yes.
the full benefit. So if your brain is on the line, if your cognitive function is on the line, if you have a mood issue and your quality of life is not where you would like it, I say don't mess around. Just go on a ketogenic diet and
Mhm.
see if that's going to help you. But if you don't tell yourself if you tried exogenous ketones and you didn't feel anything, that a ketogenic diet won't work for you, because that might not be the case. It likely is not the case. They're not one-to-one. Exogenous
No.
ketones and a ketogenic diet, they're not the same thing.
No, because there's definitely other things that have to shift in the body. I would say, some people do respond to them. Like I'll use them a lot with people, who have a brain injury or something of that nature.
Mhm.
It seems to help with reducing inflammation and help the healing process, but ultimately we still need to shift them into this ketogenic diet, so that their whole body, there's so many more mechanisms outside of exogenous ketones that need to happen to take place in order for healing to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, let's talk about that. So if someone has a traumatic brain injury and they have areas of brain hypometabolism that are happening as part of their TBI, do you know the exact dose of exogenous ketones they need to
You
keep
don't.
that brain going? And what
No.
happens when those exogenous ketones run out? What
Right.
is going to happen to that part of the brain who is now suddenly energy starved?
Yep.
And so again,
Excuse
I
me.
think exogenous, bless you, bless you. Yeah, I think exogenous ketones are really should be a tool that's added on to the ketogenic
Right.
diet, because I don't think we know the appropriate doses for whatever, and I'm pretty sure our medical system is not going to put a tracer on and try to figure out the exact dosage that people need. Yeah.
Right. And our body does. I think that's the beautiful thing. Our body
Mhm.
does know what it needs. And so when we give it what it needs, because it's designed to heal, it will produce the right amount of ketones at exactly the right time when our body needs them the most.
Right. Yeah, it's going to modulate our energy production appropriately in ways that although we're super smart humans, we're not that smart. There's too much going on in there for us to be managing that process.
We're way too distracted.
And also just
We
not
just don't know.
capable. Yeah.
No, we're
We
not
just
capable of
don't.
knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find that people have a challenge with, say, like clean keto or dirty keto? Do you understand when I say that? Like,
Yeah.
maybe let's
Yeah.
address that a little bit. And
So I like to tell people a well-formulated ketogenic diet. And when I say that, I mean no grains,
mhm.
because there's just too much research around gluten and blood-brain
Yes.
barrier permeability. And I know that you're really tempted because they've got those low-carb tortillas with the gluten in them. But if
Right.
you're trying to save your brain, there's other ways to do it. And then I also keep people away from industrialized oils,
Yes.
because if anyone gets a chance to kind of hear Georgia E talk about it, she just published, or it's coming out. She's got a book called Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind.
Hmm.
And she goes into how we understand that those seed oils are actually burned in the brain, and increasing oxidative stress. Um, and
That's
so
amazing.
while some authorities, like for example, Diet Doctor came out a few years ago saying, oh, industrialized oils are great and there's just not enough research. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that
Mm-mm.
was a good call for people's brains.
No.
Um, so I say none of that. I say, bioavailable proteins is,
Yes.
and
Can you define
bio,
that? Hmm.
yeah. So I think of, not that plant proteins are not bioavailable at all. Like there are, pea protein is more bioavailable than many other plant proteins. But I think of the nutrients that you can get from animal foods that you have trouble getting from plant foods,
Hmm.
or that require an additional step to process and turn into bioavailable micronutrients that you need for your brain. So I am a big proponent of meat in the diet.
Yes.
But I know that there are vegan and vegetarian people who do ketogenic diets, and they're trucking
Hmm.
along and they're using a lot of MCT oil. I just have concerns about long-term brain health. I
Yes.
just see a lot of people, um, vegan or vegetarian, can start to have problems later.
Yes.
And so I worry about that. And so that's not something I recommend. But there are people who do it, and so that's what I'm thinking about. I'm just thinking, how do I make it as easy as possible for the brain to get absolutely everything it needs to thrive? And
Yes.
when I think about that question, it is animal proteins.
No, I'm in total agreement. I've even had people that, come to me vegan, vegetarian. I'm like, okay. And when we have the conversation before they make their big appointment, are like, okay, we'll have to eat meat. Okay. That's just one thing we're going to have to do. We have to have some animal protein in there. And, sometimes I'll have a person like, I just can't do that. And I said, well, this is what my practice is. Right. And so, but
Yeah.
my point in saying that is, I'll have vegans and vegetarians come in and then we get them on animal protein and they'll come back and say, it was like my brain tingled and turned on.
Yeah.
Right. Because it
It's a
was
big
so
difference.
bioavailable. Their body said, thank you. Their brain was just like starving for that animal protein.
Yeah. I think that there are ketogenic metabolic therapists who are well versed in vegan and vegetarian, and if people want to try a ketogenic diet on those with those ways of eating, they should seek someone out for
Yes.
that specifically. I'm not vegan or vegetarian, so
Yeah.
I don't know all the cool options or the latest and greatest supplements that are trying to get you fats that you're just not getting from plants. And
Right.
I wouldn't know great recipes for tofu, right? So you just really want to work with someone
With
where
somebody who can.
they're comfortable working with you with that limitation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What else would you like our listeners to know? You've given us such great information today.
Oh, what do I want you to know? I want you to know that you should have been told about this therapy the very first time you walked into your doctor's office with any issue around energy or mood.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. And I want your listeners to know that there are a lot of really smart, dedicated people who are working really hard to make sure that this is considered a standard of care treatment that you get access to, and not access to after you've been treatment resistant, not after we've made you suffer for 3 to 30
Right.
years.
So it should be a first line of
It
defense.
should be given as a treatment in the very beginning. Well, we have a ketogenic diet. Here's what we know about that. We have meds, we have, psychotherapy, we have these things, but I think it needs to be talked about. And they need to know that it's an option that they can go to when and if they're ready.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. You do a lot of educating, and I know you have some great stuff coming up after the first of the year. Could you tell our listeners about your opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a licensed mental health counselor for 16 years. Last 6 years, I've been using ketogenic diets specifically as a treatment for mental illness. And I noticed that in my world of clinical psychology practice, there is a lot of misunderstanding about the ketogenic diet. In particularly, there's fear around the word diet and what that means for people. And so, in an effort to try to expand the biological pillar of that biopsychosocial model I'm talking about, I'm doing continuing education credit for metabolic psychiatry for non-prescribers. So
Okay.
this is for therapists and counselors and psychologists in the community who will encounter people who come in their office and say, hey, I've heard ketogenic diets can help with anxiety or bipolar or whatever. And so I think that many therapists hopefully will just say, gosh, I don't know anything about that, but worse, they might actually dissuade someone from doing this diet, which could be life-saving or
Right.
quality of life-saving. The suicide rate for bipolar is quite high. So there's an ethical issue with people walking into therapist's office who are using some eating disorder model that tells this person that if they do a ketogenic diet and restrict, they're going to develop an eating disorder and have a new diagnosis to add to their collection. So that someone could die. Someone could be dissuaded from the diet in which it could have saved their life or their quality of life.
Yeah.
So we have an ethical dilemma. We have an ethical issue in the field of clinical psychology in which we really must get up to speed with the research literature around this as a treatment for mental illness. It is an evidence-based treatment for mental illness.
Yes.
So the idea that we have mental health professionals out in the field dissuading people inaccurately with myths away from a diet that could treat them, a metabolic therapy for the brain that could treat them is a huge issue.
Yeah.
So February 2nd, I'll be I will be training another group of therapists. It's a national board certified counselor accredited. And it's a live training, but I do them every 3 months or so. And so I want to make sure that if your listeners have a therapist or a psychologist, they send them their way,
Mhm.
or anyone else. So that's a big deal lately, is my training,
Awesome.
that I feel really passionate about, kind of getting the word out there and just creating an army of mental health clinicians who are educated about this and able to support people in implementing the diet successfully.
I love that. I love that. And your information will be in the show notes. So if anybody's interested in that, there'll be a link to that you can share with your mental health provider. Or if you are a mental health provider, you can click on that link and join that as well. So that's really exciting to me. I'm excited for the class. I want to take that. So
Good.
yes. Well, is there any final word that you would like to say?
Oh my goodness. Is there any final word that I would like to say? Keep going. You're going to figure this out.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep going. You're going to figure this out. Brains take time to heal. With populations that like epilepsy populations, they do not see a significant reduction in seizures until about 3.2 months.
Okay.
So you really have to dig in and do this consistently and do it well and work with your practitioner. Don't write it off before you give it a chance. And in my experience, when it is the trick, when it is going to help, it just gets better and better the longer you do it. So don't tell yourself you're only going to get so far. The sky's the limit, I think, for a lot of people.
I love that. Thank you so much, Nicole. I love what you're doing. I love your message and your passion. And I know you're going to rock the psychiatry world for sure.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We appreciate you. And I appreciate all my listeners. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure that you like and subscribe and share this broadcast with everyone that you know. And I will see you in the next episode.